I was reborn in the remote mountains of northeast China in 1977, so cold my waist was about to break. I got up from the snow, and a bunch of memories that didn't belong to me flooded my mind. The original owner was also surnamed Nie, 19 years old. His biological mother died 5 years ago, and his father Nie Rahai remarried his stepmother, Huang Shifan. From then on, the family was turned upside down. In those famine years, there wasn't enough food to go around, and the stepmother brought 2 daughters, adding 3 more mouths to feed. I worked like crazy to earn work points, and the calluses on my hands were thicker than those of someone who had done hard labor all their life. But my younger siblings were still skin and bones. My youngest sister, Nie Ro, was 6 years old, half a head shorter than her peers, sallow and skinny like a weed. The stepmother's 2 daughters, on the other hand, were raised fair and plump. Anyone with eyes could see what was going on. Huang Shifan not only kept a tight grip on the grain, but also took away what I earned extra. My father didn't dare say a word. Even that wasn't enough for her. She urged me to get married and move out. My father asked someone to arrange a match with the Dong family's daughter from the west end of the village. I scraped together the bride price, thinking I could get married early and take my younger siblings out of misery. But as the wedding approached, the Dong family's daughter called off the engagement. Huang Shifan couldn't find an excuse to kick me out, so she simply stopped providing food for me and my siblings. I had a big fight with my father, almost tearing the house down, and finally gave up completely. To get food for my siblings, I risked going into the mountains, trying to find bird eggs, but I was so weak from hunger that I fell from a tree. When I woke up, I was me. In my previous life, I was an instructor in a peacekeeping force with extensive survival experience. The Northeast Forest is a natural granary. Hunting to support my family is a piece of cake for me. The first thing now is to find food and bring it back. My siblings are still hungry at home. I'm also starving, my hands and feet trembling, cold sweat on my forehead, signs of low blood sugar. I force myself to walk along the snowy slope to the base of the cliff. Where the snow is thick, the temperature is slightly higher, and plants below can stay alive. I dug through the snow and found a few tender green sprouts. I picked out some thick sheep grass, chewed it, and the sweet juice went down, finally giving me some strength. I used a short knife to cut branches, tied thin hemp rope, and made 7 or 8 simple traps. I set them up along the cliff. At the last trap, I dug through the grass and my eyes lit up. A brightly colored pheasant was sitting motionless in its nest. Behind it were 5 or 6 warm eggs. I grabbed the pheasant, picked up an egg, cracked it, and poured the raw egg liquid into my mouth. Pure wild eggs have no fishy smell at all. I only tasted one and left the rest for my siblings. While it was still light, I put the pheasant in a bag, avoided the old locust tree at the village entrance, and quietly returned to Huayin village. As I approached home, I saw my second uncle, Nie Russian, standing at the door looking anxious. "You little brat, where did you go? I've been looking for you for ages." "I went to the mountains to try my luck," I explained briefly. My second uncle is the only one in the village who truly treats us well. He even helped scrape together the bride price. He thought I was hiding because of the broken engagement and kept saying he'd go to the Dong family to demand justice. "It's fine, uncle. If she doesn't want to, it's just not meant to be," I said calmly. My second uncle was stunned, not expecting me to be so composed. "But we'll go tomorrow. The bride price must be returned. We can't take this loss." My second uncle nodded and was about to leave when I took out 2 eggs and handed them to him. "Take these back for Nan to build up her strength." My second uncle refused for a long time, but finally accepted. I slipped into the yard. The east room was where my brothers and I lived. We used to live in the main room, but after the stepmother came, we were kicked out. The earthen bed was even built by me in winter, with wind blowing through the cracks. I pushed the door open. It was empty. Just as I was about to go look for them, the main room door suddenly burst open. My younger brother Nie Yin was pushed and fell outside the threshold. Huang Shifan chased after him, cursing, "You damned thing. I kindly called you to eat, and you're picky. I'll beat you to death." Nie Yin lay on the ground, red-eyed with anger. Nie Chi and Nie Ro ran out right behind him. My little sister cried. Li Ergung spat in our vegetable porridge and forced brother Lien to eat it. When he refused, they started fighting. And then the stepmother pushed brother Lien out. My anger burned to the extreme. Nie Rahai. I called him by his full name. Nie Rahai came out of the house and looked a bit scared when he saw me. But when Huang Shifan glared at him, he immediately became tough. "I'm the one who wants to split the family. What about it?" I looked at them expressionlessly, then turned to my siblings. "Xiao Li and Xiao Qi, go to the village office and call Uncle Chonglin and Uncle Dongping. Xiao Ro, go to the front street and call second uncle." The three little ones ran off. Soon, village chief Zhao Chonglin, production team leader Dong Ping, and second uncle all arrived. When second uncle heard about the family split, he got anxious. "Xiao Tsonger, think it over. Splitting the family is no joke." I smiled and nodded, then said to the village chief, "Uncle Chonglin, please write up a written agreement." Huang Shifan was the most eager. "Oh, village chief, hurry up and write it." We agree. The separation agreement was quickly written, signed, and fingerprinted. I only asked for the East Room area. As for grain and such, I didn't even think about it. Huang Shifan guards it more than her life. After seeing off the village chief and the others, second uncle went home and brought back some mixed flour cakes and daily necessities. I distributed the cakes to my siblings, then took a bag out of the grain jar. "Uncle, look." Second uncle peeked into the bag and his eyes widened. A plump pheasant. "Hee hee. Uncle, go home and bring Nan and Andy over. We'll stew it together," I said with a smile. Second uncle snapped out of it and teased. "You little rascal, you want to honor your second uncle with this bit of meat? Keep it for yourselves. When you catch a wild boar or roe deer, I'll definitely come over and won't leave until I'm full," he said, laughing, and left. My siblings gathered around, and I pulled out the pheasant. The room erupted in cheers. Everyone pitched in. Even 6-year-old Nie Ro helped carry firewood and light the fire. The plump bird was covered in yellow fat. We cut it into pieces and threw them into the clay pot, bubbling away, the aroma wafting out. Nie Lian's cravings were stirred, and he couldn't help lifting the lid to smell. "Oh my God, this smells amazing." Nie Chi poked the stewed chicken with chopsticks. "It's done," I announced with a smile. As soon as I said that, the usually quiet Nie Chi dashed to the stove with a few chipped bowls. The tender, juicy chicken mixed with the aroma of fat filled the whole room. I filled each person's bowl to the brim. With the chicken broth, even the mixed flour cakes became a rare delicacy. As we were eating, there was a loud bang, and the door bar snapped in two. Li Ergung barged in furiously, his eyes wide. "You dare eat meat behind my mother's back? Give me the meat." This Li Ergung was raised plump by Huang Shifan and was used to bullying my siblings. Today, he even tried to grab it directly. Before Nie Lian could act, I was already standing in front of my siblings. I slapped him across the face, sending him flying, his cheeks swelling up. I grabbed his ear and dragged him into the yard, then started cursing. "Huang Shifan, if you can't raise your kids, I'll teach them for you." Huang Shifan rushed out in her padded jacket, and seeing her son beaten, her eyes turned red. She grabbed a bamboo stick and charged at me, crying. She raised it to strike, but I used Li Ergung as a shield, and the 2-finger-wide bamboo stick landed squarely on Li Ergung's face. His skin split open and blood seeped out. A pig-like scream echoed through the yard. I kicked Huang Shifan far away. "If you dare come steal things again, I'll chop off your hands." Huang Shifan couldn't get up for a long time and roared like crazy. "Nie Rahai, are you dead in there?" Nie Rahai knew he couldn't avoid it, so he pushed the door open. Seeing his wife on the ground and his son covered in blood, he was dumbfounded. "You little beast. You've gone too far." He raised his hand and charged at me. It's natural for a father to beat his son, but today he miscalculated. I punched him square in the face, sending him flying. "Nie Rahai, have you forgotten that we've split the family? From the moment we signed and fingerprinted, we're no longer related. If you want to live in peace, we'll stay out of each other's way. But if you rely on blood ties to bully us brothers, that won't work from today on. I just want to live a stable life, keeping to ourselves. If you rely on blood ties to bully us brothers, that won't work from today on." I threw Li Ergung, who had already peed his pants in fear, in front of them. "Take care of your own brat. If there's a next time, I'll chop off his hands." Back in the East Room, Nie Lian was so excited his eyes sparkled. "Brother, you were so fierce today." But Nie Chi was a bit worried. "They won't take revenge on us, will they?" I re-braced the door bar. "If they dare bully you in the future, just tell me, and I'll break their legs. We won't stay in this yard long. Next year, once we save up enough money, we'll find a place in the village and build a big house." "Really? We can live in a big house." Nie Ro gnawed on chicken and cheered with a smile. We drank every last drop of the soup from that clay pot of chicken. The next morning, the door to the main room was shut tight, with no sound at all. I couldn't be bothered with it. I went back to the room and called my 2 younger brothers. "Xiao Lian, Xiao Qi. From today on, we 3 brothers are completely separated from Nie Rahai. We'll settle the score for how he treated us before, slowly. For now, we have to support ourselves. Children of the poor grow up early." Nie Lian was 13 or 14, and Nie Chi was only 12. In later times, kids that age would still be running wild at school, but in this era, they had to shoulder the burdens of life early and contribute to survival. Brother, tell us. We'll do whatever you say. Nie Yen pursed his lips, and Nie Chi nodded in agreement. All right, then let's take this time to go over our plan. Nie Cang got straight to the point and assigned tasks to the two. After hearing the plan in full, Nie Yen and Nie Chi's hearts nearly leaped out of their chests. Brother, did we hear you right? You mean hunt wild boar? They stared wide-eyed, faces full of disbelief. What? Don't you believe in your brother's skills? Nie Cang laughed in exasperation. Have you forgotten how the pheasant tasted yesterday? No more talk. If you want meat, get moving. Nie Cang frowned. Nie Yen and Nie Chi dashed out the door and went to work according to their brother's instructions. Nie Cang fetched a basin of water and sharpened the hunting knife until it was razor sharp. After waiting less than half an hour at home, Nie Yen and Nie Chi came running back, carrying a big bundle of thin rafters. How so fast? Nie Cang was a bit surprised. There were plenty of these thin rafters on the mountain, but it took time to bring them back. They hadn't been gone that long, yet they were back so quickly. After the fire on the back mountain, all that grew back was this stuff. Xiao Qi and I used to play there often. When you mentioned thin rafters, we headed straight there. And it only took this long to gather this much. If it's not enough, we'll go again. Nie Chi rarely spoke. Nie Cang looked at his two younger brothers, sweating from exhaustion, and smiled with satisfaction. I've made some egg drop soup. You two eat it with Xiao Rou. Leave this to me for now. The thin rafters the brothers brought back were hard and straight, perfectly matching Nie Cang's requirements. Using the sharpened hunting knife, Nie Cang spent over an hour sharpening one end of each rafter. The sharpening couldn't be rushed. It had to be sharp enough, or the trap wouldn't work in the end. Otherwise, even if a boar fell in, the points wouldn't pierce its hide, and all the effort would be wasted no matter how lucky they were. Carrying the rafters on his back, Nie Cang had his two younger brothers bring the other gear and follow behind. The three brothers walked along the ridge, snow crunching underfoot, and soon reached the depths of the forest. This was a dangerous spot, a crevice where two mountains met. When setting traps yesterday, Nie Cang had already surveyed the terrain. This was the best place to hunt wild boar. Setting down the sharpened rafters, Nie Cang didn't rush to set the traps. Instead, he first checked the snares he had set yesterday, digging through the snow. A rabbit. Nie Yen's cheeks were red from the cold as he pulled out a northeast gray rabbit from the snow. This was from the trap Nie Cang had set yesterday. Adding this rabbit to the two pheasants from earlier, today's catch had already reached 3. Nie Yen and Nie Chi, the two young lads who had never hunted before, were so excited they couldn't speak as they held up the prey. Look at you two, so easily impressed. Put those down and come help your brother. Nie Cang looked at his two younger brothers and smiled. After teaching Nie Yen and Nie Chi, he explained to them where the traps were set, how to tell if prey had been caught, how to dismantle the traps, how to find where prey might be. He taught them everything they needed to learn, and then Nie Cang was free. The two eagerly went to check the traps and, in less than an hour, had gone through all the traps Nie Cang had set yesterday. Nie Cang didn't forget to check their work. Nie Yen was impatient. Although his trap placement was accurate, the knots securing the snares weren't tight enough. Nie Chi was more reliable. He completed all the details Nie Cang had explained very well, though his strength was still a bit lacking, and he couldn't pull the hemp ropes binding the stakes tight enough. These were minor flaws. Nie Cang was very satisfied with his younger brother's work. After bundling up the catch, Nie Cang swung his arms and chopped down 7 or 8 tree trunks as thick as a bowl. The rafters sharpened at home were embedded into the trunks through chiseled wedge holes, and 2 shorter stakes were tied across the trunks, standing in the snow like the caltrops used in ancient warfare. This was the trap device Nie Cang had designed, specifically to deal with charging wild boars. Following the tracks in the snow, the 3 dragged the caltrops and found the valley entrance. At the narrowest point, Nie Cang drove the stakes directly into the snow, with the sharp rafter points hidden among them, impossible to spot without close inspection. The other caltrop was suspended from a large tree nearby with ropes, connected to a tripwire mechanism. After all this was done, Nie Cang led his 2 younger brothers from outside the valley, along the 3 mountain slopes, to the highest point. With a spark from the flint, a small torch was lit, and Nie Cang signaled Nie Yen to take out the prepared items. Nie Yen pulled out the trump card they had prepared earlier from his bag, lit the fuse, swung it in his hand for a moment, then threw it. It startled even the usually calm Nie Chi. Boom! The huge explosion echoed through the valley. On the distant slopes, Some loose snow was shaken loose and scattered. Nie Yin kept his hands moving, continuously lighting the fuses of the firecrackers. These firecrackers were something Nie Cang had Nie Yin steal from the village ancestral hall storeroom. Originally, they were only used during festivals and ancestral rites. Now that Nie Cang had gotten them, it wasn't a big deal. Throw them slower. Nie Cang noticed Nie Yin was setting them off a bit too fast and quickly stopped him. We need these firecrackers to cover all 3 slopes. If you use them all up, we'll have none left. Nie Yin suddenly remembered this wasn't New Year's. They were using the firecrackers to drive out the prey. He had gotten carried away with setting them off and forgotten the real purpose. After setting off 30 or 40 firecrackers, the 3 brothers had covered the 3 slopes around the canyon. Let's go check the results. Nie Cang pointed to the canyon entrance and waved his hand. In the forest, Nie Cang walked leisurely, while Nie Yin and Nie Chi beside him looked excited. Brother, can we really catch prey like this? Nie Yin couldn't quite believe it. Hunting was definitely the newest thing to him. In his view, what they had done today didn't seem that complicated. Just cutting trees, setting traps, and setting off firecrackers all over the mountain. Honestly, it was even a bit fun. Let's see, shall we? Nie Cang smiled and signaled them to hurry up. The 3 hurried toward the valley entrance. Before they even got close, Nie Cang, with his sharp eyes, noticed that the suspended caltrip had been triggered. Careful, you 2 stay back. Nie Cang stopped his 2 younger brothers and walked alone toward the valley entrance. Along the path where the traps had been set, bright red blood was splattered across the pristine white snow. Under the toppled caltrip not far away, a wild boar weighing at least 300 or 400 gene, with rafter points stuck in its head, covered in blood, had been turned into a pincushion. Success. Nie Cang's face lit up with joy. Hunting was always 70% skill and 30% luck. His method might not be sophisticated, but it was effective. With his 2 younger brothers, Nie Yin and Nie Chi, in tow, Nie Cang couldn't choose too dangerous a method. Moreover, his own body was still weak, and he couldn't face such a beast head-on in a fight. Xiao Lian, Xiao Qi, come over. Nie Cang beckoned to his 2 younger brothers behind him. Seeing their eldest brother's face full of smiles, Nie Chi and Nie Lian were excited and ran over, kicking through the snow. When they saw the prey that had been turned into a pincushion, the 2 kids were so excited they almost jumped. Caught it. We've got meat to eat. Nie Lian, in his excitement, wanted to walk up close, but Nie Cang grabbed him. Wait, let your brother check it out first. In case it's not dead yet, I don't want it to hurt you. Nie Cang held his brother's hand and walked slowly to the prey with his hunting knife. This wild boar was clearly an adult, weighing at least 300 gene. In the northeastern forest, because resources were abundant, prey rarely lacked food, so boars of this size were not uncommon. According to the villagers, there had even been a 500 or 600 gene boar king in the nearby mountains. That beast was ferocious, bullets couldn't penetrate its hide, and it was impossible for ordinary people to catch it. Nie Cang didn't think about the boar king. He would be content just to bring this boar back. Judging by the blood on the prey, the boar had been hit by the trap quite a while ago. The blood on its body was already turning dark. There were no signs of damage to the surrounding environment. From the tracks, quite a few prey had fled toward the valley, at least 7 or 8 of them. This unlucky fellow had been struck in the head by a sharp stake and died almost without struggling. Nie Cang used his hunting knife to stab into the boar's neck from underneath. And while the body hadn't completely cooled, he quickly bled it. Come over. Having eliminated the danger, Nie Cang smiled and let his 2 brothers come over. A miscalculation. Nie Cang looked at the blood flowing from the prey, a hint of regret on his face. Nie Yin and Nie Chi were puzzled and looked at their brother. I didn't bring a basin. This pig blood is a top-notch thing. Nie Cang introduced it like a gourmet. Take it back, add some coarse salt, stuff it into the small intestine and steam it. Then get some pickled cabbage and pork belly, and we'll have a pig-killing feast. Nie Yin and Nie Chi had been born in bad times and had no idea what a pig-killing feast was. In this village, let alone killing a pig, there weren't many who even killed a chicken during festivals. The reason was simple and easy to understand. If people had nothing to eat, how could there be leftover grain to feed livestock? But just hearing Nie Cang's description, Nie Yin and Nie Chi were already drooling. Pork belly stewed with pickled cabbage. Just hearing it could whet one's appetite. The blood sausage could be skipped. The 3 brothers worked together, with Nie Cang responsible for cutting up the pork with his knife. Nie Yin and Nie Chi, the 2 kids, took out bags and put the cut meat into them by part. Without a big pot to boil water, they definitely couldn't remove the boar's hair. Nie Cang simply decided not to bother and skinned the boar directly, taking the hide back for later processing. Xiao Lian, Xiao Qi, help your brother rinse the innards with snow. Nie Cang wiped the sweat from his face. Processing this 300 or 400 gene prey took a lot of effort. If they didn't process it in the mountains and just dragged it back to the village like this, who knows how many envious eyes it would attract. Nie Cang didn't want to be so high profile. He just wanted to live a stable life with his younger siblings. Don't mind the smell. Once these are cleaned up, they're even better than meat. Nie Cang encouraged his two brothers. In fact, his worry was unnecessary. Nie Lian and Nie Qi were sensible kids. They squatted on the snow, washing the innards, with no sign of discomfort on their faces. Brother, hee, as long as we can eat that pig-killing feast you mentioned, we don't care about the smell. Huh? Nie Qi, don't you think so? Nie Lian laughed so hard, he blew a snot bubble. Yes. Nie Qi rarely agreed with his brother, his face full of smiles. The snakeskin bags they brought weren't all filled to the brim, and the bags were almost bursting. The innards and bones were packed in another bag, making 3 full bags of meat in total. Brother, are we carrying them back? Nie Lian looked at so much meat, both happy and worried. Silly kid, what are you saying? How could we carry this back? Nie Cang smiled. He called his two brothers, and the 3 of them cut quite a few stakes in the woods. Nie Cang used an axe to smooth the surface of the stakes as supports for a snow sled. He chiseled out a few wedges with his hunting knife and fixed the trimmed stakes together to make a simple snow sled. Let's go home. Nie Cang called his brothers and loaded the cut meat onto the sled. The 3 happily took their hunting gear and other things and pulled the sled back home. Huayin Village was a small village at the edge of the mountains. The whole village had fewer than 1,000 people, divided into only 4 production teams. The setting sun's glow dyed the snow-covered ground in gold. Sanger is back. Hey, what did you get? Such a pile. The uncles in the village saw the 3 brothers enter the village, and those familiar with Nie Cang greeted him. The original owner had good relationships in the village. He was hardworking and uncomplaining, and everyone said Nie Cang was a good young man. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been chosen by the Dong family as their prospective son-in-law. Dong Qiujuan, the daughter of the Dong family, was famously beautiful in Huayin Village, and many young men in the village had their eyes on her. The original owner had also been very fond of Dong Qiujuan. Otherwise, he wouldn't have sold everything he had to gather the bride price to marry her. But now, Nie Cang had no interest in Dong Qiujuan at all. If it hadn't been for the broken engagement, perhaps Nie Cang would have just gone along with it. But after this incident, Nie Cang would never agree. He knew Dong Qiujuan's personality well. She was used to being pampered by everyone, full of spoiled young lady habits, and couldn't endure any hardship. Marrying Nie Cang was only because her family forced her. The two weren't really suited. Got some mountain goods? Uncle, come by and have a taste when you have time. Nie Cang smiled and greeted the village uncles. The uncles who heard this naturally didn't take it seriously. Even in times of famine, the more rural the place, the more people cared about face. If someone is polite and invites you, you don't just go and scoop rice from their pot. Normal people wouldn't do that. Pulling the sled home, Nie Cang and his brothers carried the snake skin bags into the house. Before they could open them to show Nie Ro, who had been waiting at home, a loud scolding suddenly came from outside the door. Hearing the commotion, Nie Cang's smiling face instantly turned cold. Get inside, you disgraceful thing. Today you'll marry whether you want to or not. I didn't go looking for you, but you've come to me. Nie Cang sneered inwardly. The previous visit to the Dong family to finalize the engagement had been humiliating. He had worked day and night to earn money and scraped together the bride price from here and there. Nie Cang had owed countless favors in the village, and in the end, the new wife had run away. Opening the door, it was indeed the Dong family, with Dong Qiujuan bound and staggering at the entrance of the main room. Brother Rahai, I've come to apologize. Dong Youjuan, with a round face and bald head, had a daughter who was quite pretty. Clearly, Dong Youjuan didn't know about Nie Cang's family division and had brought a pig's head to the wrong temple. Sure enough, Huang Shifan, who had been sulking at home all day, opened the door and started cursing. Dong Baldy, are you blind as well as bald? What's this all about? Sending your worthless goods to be Nie Rahai's concubine. The words were too harsh. Dong Youjuan stood stunned at the door, his face turning purple. Nie Rahai pulled Huang Shifan inside and explained to Dong Youjuan with a flattering smile. Brother Youjuan, don't you know? I and that beast Nie Cang split the family yesterday. The village officials came and wrote the agreement. You're here about the marriage, right? Go to the east room. That little beast is over there. Nie Rahai pointed to the east room, and Dong Yozhan looked over, indeed seeing Nie Cang coming out from there. Nie Rahai, keep your damn woman in check. When Dong Yozhan heard that Nie Rahai and Nie Cang had split up, he stopped being polite. If she talks nonsense again, I'll have someone tear her mouth apart. Dong Yozhan, who had been holding in a belly full of anger, finally lets him out. Dragging Dong Xiujuan, he headed toward the east room. Songer, your uncle is here to apologize. Seeing Nie Cang, Dong Yozhan couldn't help but feel guilty. This was the son-in-law he had chosen in the village, a solid and hard-working man. Everything had been agreed upon, but it was his daughter who was disobedient. It looked like this marriage was going to be ruined. I've brought her here. Do whatever you want with her. Dong Yozhan pulled his daughter and threw her in front of Nie Cang. Dong Xiujuan hadn't said a word since entering Nie Cang's house. She was bound with hemp rope, and there were faint bruises on her face, clearly from a severe beating by Dong Yozhan at home. Dong Xiujuan's expression was cold, looking at Nie Cang as if he were a stranger. Uncle, since things have come to this, I think we should call off the marriage. Nie Cang said calmly. He had never had much feeling for Dong Xiujuan. Today, it was clear that she would blame all of Dong Yozhan's beatings on him. Nie Cang wouldn't take that blame, and he couldn't afford to. Dong Yozhan only had this one daughter. If he married Dong Xiujuan, the responsibility of supporting Dong Yozhan and his wife in their old age would fall on the son-in-law. Originally, it had been agreed with Nie Cang. Besides the betrothal gift, Nie Cang had also agreed to this. But now it was too late to say anything. Nie Cang couldn't marry Dong Xiujuan. Oh, child, why are you angry with your uncle? Dong Yozhan was anxious, pushing Dong Xiujuan forward. That day, Xiujuan lost her head, and I've already taught her a lesson. Let's be straightforward. How can you call off a settled marriage just like that? You brat. Speak up. After explaining to Nie Cang, Dong Yozhan kicked Dong Xiujuan. Seeing this, Nie Cang couldn't help but find it amusing. Dong Yozhan seemed honest and simple, but he was actually quite cunning. Was he playing a sympathy trick in front of him? Before Nie Cang could speak, Dong Xiujuan, holding back tears, began to cry out. Dad, I won't marry him. I don't like him. Look at this yard. It's not fit for living. It's worse than the livestock shed in the team. Aren't you pushing your daughter into a pit of fire? Dong Xiujuan sobbed, her face streaked with tears. Shut up. You have no say here. Dong Yozhan snapped, scolding her. Seeing that the situation had developed enough, Nie Cang couldn't be bothered to waste words with the Dong father and daughter. He instructed Nie Lian to go to the village and call his second uncle, Nie Russian, and his paternal uncle, Nie Ping. Uncle, since you're here, let's get things straight. Nie Cang said frankly. Your daughter doesn't want to marry me, so we won't force it. Although I, Nie Cang, am not wealthy, I have some self-respect. As the old saying goes, a forced melon isn't sweet, and you can't force a cow to drink water. This marriage can't happen. Nie Cang said calmly. Return the betrothal gift, and let's end it here. We're all from Huayin village, and we'll see each other often. Everyone is somewhat related. Nie Cang didn't want to make things too ugly. As for Dong Xiujuan and Li Daswang from the neighboring village, Nie Cang often walked around the village, so how could he not know? The reason he didn't mention it was to save face for Dong Yozhan. If the other party kept pestering to force the marriage, Nie Cang wouldn't be so good-tempered. Little Songer, have you heard some rumors in the village? My Xiujuan has no relationship with anyone else. I can swear on my life for that. Nie Cang didn't bring it up, but Dong Yozhan got anxious and started swearing oaths. Whether your daughter has a relationship with someone else is your business, and I don't care how you raise your children. But today, the marriage must be called off. Nie Cang directly interrupted Dong Yozhan's explanation. Seeing Nie Cang's tough stance, Dong Yozhan didn't know what to say. On the other hand, Dong Xiujuan, seeing how heartless and indifferent Nie Cang was, felt a bit unacceptable, and the disgust in her eyes grew stronger. Songer, what's going on? Nie Russian hurried over, followed by production team leader Nie Ping. When Dong Yozhan saw the elders of Nie Cang's family, he originally wanted to mediate a few words. But before he could speak, he saw Nie Russian's murderous gaze and was so scared he didn't dare say a word. Dong Yozhan, are you bullying our Nie family because you think we have no one? Nie Russian was Nie Cang's uncle. Over the past 2 days, he had contacted many people in the village, planning to go to the Dong family to demand an explanation. But unexpectedly, the other party had come to his door first. Seeing his uncle ready to resort to violence after just a few words, Nie Cang quickly stepped forward to stop him. Uncle, there's no need. Just return the betrothal gift, and we'll each go our own way. Nie Cang held Nie Rahai back. Good nephew, you have ambition. Uncle will find you some prettier wives later. Nie Russian declared boldly. The betrothal gift Nie Cang had gathered was 300 yuan in total. Dong Yozhan hemmed and hawed for a long time, but in the end, only returned half of it. Uncle Nie Ping, please write an IOU. This money can't just disappear, Nie Cang said bluntly. Nie Ping and Nie Cang's family were relatives 2 generations apart, and today he was just a witness. How could it disappear? Dong Yozhan, I'm telling you, the money my nephew gave you must be returned. Otherwise, this isn't over. Nie Ping took out paper and pen, wrote an IOU, and had Dong Yozhan sign and fingerprint it. At this point, even if Dong Yozhan was unwilling, he knew it couldn't be undone. He signed the IOU, agreeing to return the remaining betrothal gift to Nie Cang within a month. With that, the matter was settled. Dong Xiujuan had a relieved expression on her face. She wouldn't be forced to marry Nie Cang, and she could finally be with brother Daswan. Although she had no feelings for Nie Cang, she had just heard Nie Cang's uncle say that he would introduce Nie Cang to some prettier wives. Dong Xiujuan still felt a bit indignant. Were there really girls prettier than her in the surrounding villages? Talking big. Aren't you afraid of the wind hurting your tongue? Get out. You're a disgrace. As they were leaving, Dong Yozhan, who had been humiliated and lost all face, gritted his teeth in hatred and slapped Dong Xiujuan across the face again. Nie Cang pretended not to see it and pulled his uncle Nie Russian into the east room. Songer, don't be discouraged. Nie Russian comforted Nie Cang. We have good days ahead. We'll find you a better wife later. Hearing his uncle's comfort, Nie Cang smiled sheepishly. He didn't need to think to know that his uncle probably thought he was still thinking about Dong Xiujuan. The way he had acted so decisively today would make outsiders think he was doing it to save face. But only Nie Cang knew that all he wanted now was to live his own life well. Uncle, this money is what I borrowed from you. Take it. Nie Cang took the betrothal gift he had just recovered from Dong Yozhan and pressed it into Nie Russian's hand. Nie Cang knew his uncle's family situation well. Although it was a bit better than his own, they were still struggling. Because of the loan, his uncle and aunt had argued more than once. Now that the money was back, he naturally wanted his uncle to take it first. There's no rush for this money. You just split from the family and need money everywhere. Keep it for now. Nie Russian was embarrassed to accept it. It's fine, uncle. I'll have money soon. Nie Cang pointed to the snakeskin bags on the ground and said to Nie Russian. Nie Cang hadn't had a chance to open these big bags since he brought them back. What's this? Nie Russian was puzzled. Nie Lian and Nie Chi beside him grinned and opened the bags. Fresh, tender pork, neatly stacked by cut, filled several bags. Nie Russian was stunned. This. Songer, tell me the truth. Where did this meat come from? Nie Russian thought the pork was stolen by Nie Cang from someone in another village, and his expression was very uncertain. Second uncle, brother took Nie Chi and me to hunt it in the forest behind the mountain. Nie Lian couldn't keep it in and explained. Hearing this, Nie Russian was completely shocked. With this much meat, if it came from a wild boar, it must weigh at least 300 or 400 jin. Just you kids? Then what about all those hunters who die in the mountains every year? After confirming several times, Nie Russian finally accepted the fact. Uncle, last time I treated you to chicken, you said you'd eat when we got a wild boar. Now that we've got one, will you eat? Nie Cang remembered what his second uncle had said before and couldn't help teasing him. Nie Russian laughed heartily. Eat? Why wouldn't I? Today, I won't leave until my belly is full. Huh. Good. Nie Cang laughed along. Setting up the clay pot, Nie Cang picked a few of the best pieces of meat and threw them into the pot along with the cut pickled cabbage. This pickled cabbage was a gift from his second uncle before, and today it finally came in handy. Xiaolian, go to uncle's house and call your aunt and Nan Nan and the others. Today we're having a big pot of stewed meat, and we'll eat our fill. Nie Cang was full of boldness. But Nie Russian didn't agree. This meat looks like a lot, but our family is short of even more things. Let's be frugal. When you have money in the future, I'll enjoy the good life with you. Nie Russian advised. But Nie Cang couldn't let his uncle go back empty-handed. He packed most of the offal and bones into a bag, and also cut out a whole hind leg from the pile of meat, insisting that Nie Russian take it home. Nie Russian wanted to decline, but Nie Cang was firm. If he didn't take it, Nie Cang would personally deliver it to his house. Unable to resist his nephew's insistence, Nie Russian left Nie Cang's house with the meat. From the meat they brought back, Nie Cang picked a large piece and made a big pot of kill pig dish, a traditional dish made with fresh pork and pickled cabbage, mixed with pickled cabbage. Nie Cang could understand Nie Russian's mindset. Having suffered for half a lifetime, suddenly having something, he definitely wouldn't waste it all. But he didn't know Nie Cang's ability. Going into the mountains to get some game was a piece of cake for Nie Cang. Not to mention the wild boar they brought back today. Even the traps Nie Cang had set before would yield enough to feed the family a good meal today. However, those wild chickens and gray rabbits, after Nie Cang slaughtered them, he didn't cut them up. Taking them whole to the town commune would sell better than cutting them into pieces. The aroma of pork cooking in the clay pot soon filled the whole room. Nie Cang tasted it and felt the meat was about done. Using chopsticks, he picked out the cooked meat, and with a knife, he sliced the meat thinly and evenly spread it over the stewed pickled cabbage. This basin of kill pig dish was just missing some blood sausage. Eat up. Nie Cang smiled and urged everyone to start eating. The younger siblings, who had been starving, didn't stand on ceremony and picked up their chopsticks to eat heartily. The fatty aroma of pork was something chicken couldn't compare to. The appetizing smell made everyone's hearts race. Nie Cang chewed the streaky pork with a mix of fat and lean, his face beaming so much that his eyes were nearly shut. Brother, is this the kill pig dish? It's so fragrant. Xiao Lian, eat slowly. No one's going to steal it from you. Nie Cang looked at his brother's face contorted by the heat and couldn't help but smile. Brother Lian always eats like this. Last time Li Ergung spat in the rice, I didn't have time to tell Brother Lian, and he had already downed half a bowl of soup. Nie Ro, small as she was, sat by the stove, eating and teasing. Nie Lian's face turned red at his sister's words. Who knew Li Ergung was such a jerk? Playing tricks on me is one thing, but if he dares to bully Xiao Ro, I'll beat him up. Nie Lian, full after eating, was full of fighting spirit. Anyway, they had split the family, so there was no need to fear that shrew Huang Shifan anymore. I think we should avoid contact with the people in the main house. Don't cause trouble for brother. Nie Qi ate elegantly and reminded Nie Lian. It's fine, we really don't need to indulge them anymore. We don't provoke trouble, but we're not afraid of it either. If anyone in the village bullies you, I'll have your back. Nie Cang patted his brother's head and encouraged everyone. These younger siblings were his only family in this world. Nie Cang would take care of them even at the cost of his life, which would also do justice to the original owner's body and the chance to live again. In the courtyard, in the east room where Nie Cang lived, the aroma of meat wafted through cracks and the chimney. Li Ergung, who was about to sleep in the main house, smelled it and pestered Huang Shifan. Mom, smell that. They're stewing meat again in Nie Lian's room. Li Ergung's mouth watered. What's there to smell? Look at you, so pathetic. Go to sleep. Huang Shifan scolded angrily. Mom, I want some too. Li Ergung grinned, looking like a glutton. Eat, eat, eat. All you know is eating. If you keep whining, I'll slap you. Huang Shifan glared. The temptation of pork was no match for the threat of a slap. Li Ergung, with a mournful face, reluctantly went back to the Kong to sleep. Humph, eat away. Let's see how long you can be smug. Isn't it just that Dong Yozhan returned the betrothal gift? With a few stinking coins, I'll see how long you can act high and mighty. Before closing the door, Huang Shifan looked venomously at the light in the east room and muttered hatefully. Nie Cang didn't know how much his meat-eating caused distress to the people in the main house. After eating their fill with his siblings and cleaning up, they went to bed early. The next day at dawn, when Nie Cang woke up, Nie Qi and Nie Lian were already eager. Hunting knives, snakeskin bags, hemp ropes, and fire starters and other odds and ends were all ready. Brother, are we going up the mountain today? Nie Lian asked excitedly, his face not even properly washed. What mountain? What? Are you two hooked on hunting? Nie Cang was a bit amused. These two little rascals, instead of sleeping after eating, were thinking only of going hunting. But it wasn't their fault. What kid that age didn't like going into the mountains to hunt? Besides, the family was poor, and catching things could supplement the household. We're not going today. We have something more important to do. Nie Cang teased. Nie Lian and Nie Qi were disappointed at first, then looked at Nie Cang curiously. In a bit, you two go to second uncle's house and borrow his cart. I'll take you to town to sell the pork. When we get the money, I'll take you to the supply and marketing cooperative to buy things. Nie Cang announced loudly. The kids' faces lit up with joy, and even Nie Ro jumped up. The supply and marketing cooperative, for people of that era, was the most upscale store. Besides necessities like rice, flour, oil, and salt, candies, biscuits, and canned goods were all stacked on the shelves. Those were rare items you couldn't see usually. Being able to go in and spend money was as exciting as going hunting. Nie Cang promised everyone could choose freely. Today they'd splurge. They heated up the leftover meat broth from yesterday and had it with flatbreads for breakfast. While Nie Cang cleaned up, Nie Lian and Nie Qi went to borrow the cart from their second uncle's house. They loaded the snakeskin bags onto the cart. Nie Cang locked the door, and with his siblings, pushed the cart out of the yard. Huang Shifan saw Nie Cang pulling things out and was curious about what was inside. But she didn't come over to ask. The kicks Nie Cang had given her before hadn't healed yet. Going up to him now would just be asking for trouble. Once out of the yard, the brothers put Nie Ro on the cart, and Nie Lian and Nie Chi helped their eldest brother push the cart. Zhangjiagu commune wasn't far from Huayin village. After less than an hour's walk, Nie Cang pushed the cart to the street where the market was. It was still early, and there were a few other vendors selling mountain goods on the street, loudly hawking their wares. In the era of the planned economy, pork supply required ration tickets. Private individuals were not allowed to operate many businesses. However, in Zhangjiagu, because it was located in a mountainous area, many villagers brought some mountain goods to supplement their household income, and the authorities didn't interfere, even encouraged this behavior. The wild boar meat Nie Cang was selling naturally fell into this category. Wild boar meat. Fresh wild boar meat. Come and take a look. Nie Lian, being outgoing, imitated the other vendors and shouted loudly. Nie Cang untied the snakeskin bag and dumped the wild boar meat out entirely. The fresh, well-cut wild boar meat quickly attracted people to gather around. Young man, how much is this meat? A middle-aged man in a mouse suit tried to ask. 2 yuan a pound. Nie Cang smiled and quoted the price. The middle-aged man frowned upon hearing this. 2 yuan? The pork at the supply and marketing cooperative is only 1 yuan and 50 cents. How dare you sell it for 2 yuan? Nie Cang heard this and didn't argue. The cooperative's meat is indeed 1 yuan 50, but you need meat coupons to buy it. My wild boar meat is mountain goods, no meat coupons needed, so the price is naturally a bit higher. Nie Cang's explanation was flawless. In fact, his price of 2 yuan was even a bit low. Zhangjiaji commune is located in a mountainous area, so it might seem like there's no shortage of mountain goods in game. But note that the current season is winter, and it's extremely difficult to hunt prey in the mountains. Only a hunter with extremely rich experience like Nie Cang could track down prey in the vast mountains. With scarce supply and no need for meat coupons, even though wild boar meat tastes worse, the white fat on it is genuine. Selling at 2 yuan is definitely fair and reasonable. All right, give me 5 pounds. The middle-aged man saw there was no room to bargain and quickly made the purchase. Nie Cang's scale was borrowed from his second uncle along with the cart. Following the middle-aged man's request, he cut a piece from the hind leg. After weighing and paying, the first deal was done. With the first deal, Nie Cang's wild boar meat sales took off. Because the price was fair and no meat coupons were needed, the stall was soon surrounded by people. By noon, there was little meat left on Nie Cang's stall. All right, no more buying. We'll keep the rest for ourselves. Nie Cang packed up a few large bones and a few pounds of lean meat, ready to close up. His pockets were bulging with various small bills and the heart-stopping great unity notes. Roughly estimating, this wild boar plus a few rabbits and pheasants had sold for at least 500 yuan, earning so much from one trip into the mountains. Isn't the goal of a better life within reach? Nie Cang was full of confidence, pushing the cart and heading to the supply and marketing cooperative with his younger siblings. Young man, just then, the auntie selling mountain goods next to him suddenly called out to Nie Cang. I want to buy some of your pork, but I don't have money. Can I trade some of my mountain goods for it? The old auntie wore a dirty scarf and looked particularly pitiful. Nie Cang glanced at the goods on her stall, all dried goods like black fungus, shiitake mushrooms, and dried potatoes. These things would be valuable in normal times, but now is a famine period. Black fungus and shiitake mushrooms are at best vegetables, and dried potatoes can't replace grain. They're all worth little. Nie Cang had over 500 yuan in his pocket, so his family certainly wouldn't lack food. These mountain goods were all top quality. Stewing meat with them would be delicious. Trade. Nie Cang dragged the meat off the cart and threw it in front of the auntie. 4 or 5 pounds of lean meat plus a few large bones were exchanged for a big pile of mountain goods like black fungus, shiitake mushrooms, and dried potatoes. The old auntie knew she had gotten a good deal and kept thanking Nie Cang. If Nie Cang hadn't traded with her, she probably wouldn't have sold all this stuff even by evening unless she lowered the price further. Nie Cang packed up the mountain goods and loaded them onto his cart. There was still plenty of meat left at home before he left, so trading the rest to the auntie didn't matter. It seemed he had sold his wild boar meat, but the mountain goods he got in return were also good things. Let's go to the supply and marketing cooperative. Nie Cang waved to his younger siblings. Nie Lian and Nie Ro cheered with joy, but only Nie Chi stood still. Xiao Qi, why aren't you coming? Nie Cang was puzzled and stopped just as he was about to step into the cooperative. I'm afraid our cart might not be safe outside. You go in, I'll watch the cart here. Nie Cang replied. The supply and marketing cooperative of Zhangjiaji commune was right across from the town government, with many people coming and going. Nie Cang was touched by his younger brother's thoughtfulness. Come on, Xiaoqi, our mountain goods won't get lost. Nie Cang took his brother's hand and walked toward the cooperative. It was the late 1970s, and although materials were scarce, people's moral standards hadn't sunk that low, especially on the main street opposite the commune. Who would dare to steal? Pulling Nie Cang along, the four of them entered the cooperative's gate happily. Before even seeing the sales clerk, Nie Cang was stunned by the colorful goods on the shelves. Wow, brother, look! Are those milk candies? Nie Cang pointed at a round tin box. She had seen this before in her stepmother's room. It was bought from the commune when she married in. But Nie Cang had only seen it. She had no idea what milk candy tasted like. At most she had seen Li Urging eating it from a distance. Huh. Xiao, don't worry. Today, whatever you want, I'll buy it for you. Nie Cang, carrying a large sum of money, spoke with confidence. Comrade, please get me a box of milk candies. Nie Cang pointed at the goods on the shelf and said calmly. With Nie Cang's encouragement, the sensible younger siblings stopped being reserved and started saying what they wanted. Nie Cang refused nothing. He bought everything they liked. They had suffered for too long, and the childhood regrets of his younger siblings needed to be made up for in this way. Although the family needed money, for Nie Cang, this money was spent in the most worthwhile way. He bought a large pile of biscuits, candies, canned goods, and other food at once. He also bought face cream, soap, and other daily necessities. After all this spending, he had spent nearly 200 yuan. That was almost as much as the betrothal gift Nie Cang had painstakingly saved up before. On the way back, Nie Cang pushing the cart attracted the attention of passers-by, who wondered who was so extravagant, as if they had emptied the entire cooperative. Huayin village was still the same as ever. When Nie Cang brought his younger siblings back to the village, the villagers looked on with envy. Nie Cang held the tin box of milk candies, chewing on the sweet candies, which made the other village children chase after Nie Cang's cart for a long way. Nie Cang saw several familiar faces, all younger kids from the village uncles' families. Xiao, take out a few of your candies and share them with the younger brothers and sisters, okay? Nie Cang discussed with Nie Cang with a smile. Ever since Nie Cang married a wife, Nie Cang and his siblings had become neglected children. Many village uncles and aunties couldn't bear to see this and occasionally gave them leftover dried sweet potatoes and other grains. Now that he had the means, Nie Cang wouldn't forget such kindness. He distributed candies generously. Nie Cang was also very sensible, though her face showed some reluctance. She still generously took out a few candies. The children following the cart got the candies, and their faces broke into wide smiles. They followed Nie Cang all the way to his doorstep before reluctantly dispersing. When the cart entered the yard, Huang Shifan was hanging clothes with her son, Li Urging, and daughter Li Qiao. Li Urjing's eyes lit up at the sight of the things on Nie Cang's cart. Li Qiao, who was a year older than her, remained calm, but her eyes were also glued to the cart. Mom, look, Nie Lian and the others bought so many things. Biscuits, milk candies, and orange canned goods. Li Urjing shouted in the yard. If it had been before, the kid would have rushed over and started grabbing things. Relying on Huang Shifan's favoritism, Li Urjing had often bullied Nie Lian and the others. Even the dry rations Nie Cang brought back from working overtime at the production team, which he couldn't bear to eat, would be snatched away from Nie Lian and the others by Li Urjing, counting on his fingers. Nie Cang was furious about this, but every time that old thing Nie Cang sided with Li Urjing and the others, as if Nie Lian and the others weren't his own children. Li Urjing was excited and started to dash over. But after a few steps, he suddenly realized something was wrong. He looked up and saw Nie Cang's cold gaze, and immediately came to his senses. He turned around and whimpered softly to Huang Shifan, who was hanging clothes. Mom, I want to eat biscuits too, and I want orange canned goods. How could Huang Shifan not have seen what Nie Cang and the others bought? Besides jealousy, a surge of resentment and anger welled up in her heart. If I had known, I should have made it clear when we divided the family property, and had Nie Cang share the betrothal gift sent to Dong Youzhan's family. No need to stand here watching others shop and feeling envious. Eat, eat. Aren't you afraid of eating yourself to death? Huang Shifan was irritated and vented her anger at Li Urjing. No, I want it. Wah. Li Urjing, seeing his mother refuse, threw a tantrum and cried. In the east room, after Nie Cang and the others brought things home, Nie Lian deliberately caused trouble. He took a can of orange slices, opened it in front of Li Urging, used the new chopsticks to string the orange segments together, sat on the threshold of the East Room, and shared them with Nie Ro. Li Urging, who was already greedy and itching for a taste, saw this, and his mouth watered. No matter how Huang Shifan scolded or hit him, he insisted on eating the canned oranges, rolling on the ground in the middle of winter. "Get back to your room, you disgraceful thing." Huang Shifan looked at Nie Lien, who was smug at the East Room door, and glared angrily. Nie Lien wasn't afraid of her. He provocatively used his chopsticks to fish out oranges from the can, making the glass jar clatter. Huang Shifan was so angry she stopped hanging clothes. She dragged Li Urging from the ground and headed to the main room. Li Qiao, who had been silent, followed her mother back to the room without a word. "Brother Lien." Nie Qi helped carry things and saw this. Couldn't help but worry. "Why are you teasing Li Urging? If you anger Huang Shifan, she might rush over and grab things." "She wouldn't dare." Nie Lien felt pleased and retorted. "If she dares to grab things, our brother will skin her alive." Nie Cang found this a bit amusing and didn't scold his younger brother. "All right, Xiaolian, come in and eat. It's too cold outside." Nie Cang called his younger siblings back into the room. Whether he could skin Huang Shifan alive, Nie Cang wasn't sure. But if she dared to come and grab things, a beating was definitely in store. This vicious woman, only by being tougher than her can you suppress the evil in her heart. After entering the room, Nie Lien looked pleased and lectured Nie Qi. "That little bastard Li Urging, how did he treat us before? He hit me and bullied Xiaoro many times. I wish he would come and grab things, so I could punch his teeth out." Nie Lien put down the can and helped Nie Cang clean the stove. "I'm afraid you'll cause trouble for brother." Nie Qi voiced his concern. Nie Cang looked at his two younger brothers' different personalities and couldn't help but smile. "It's fine, we just need to live our own lives well." Nie Cang comforted him. It's normal for kids to have some edge. Whether it's Xiaolian's vengeance or Xiaoqi's careful thinking, Nie Cang appreciated both. He was grateful to have these relatives after being reborn. As long as they could grow up safely, nothing else mattered. Although the things bought today were only a part, they should be enough to secure their future life. The large iron pot, 1/2 meter in diameter, fit perfectly on the stove. Other pots, bowls, and utensils were all available. Nie Cang even bought many spices like star anise and Sichuan pepper. He also prepared several sets of quilts and mattresses. Other food items like mixed grains and pickled vegetables were piled high. The only shortcoming was not being able to buy new clothes for everyone. But there was no way around it. The clothes sold at the supply and marketing cooperative were stylish, but not warm enough. Nie Cang couldn't find suitable ones after searching for a long time. So he bought some cloth, planning to use the pelts from future hunting to have the village ants sew some clothes. When spring warms up, he could buy new ones from the cooperative. Looking at the refreshed home, Nie Cang felt a bit at ease, no longer worrying about food and clothing for now. Living in this drafty, broken house long-term wasn't a solution. Nie Cang planned to discuss with village chief Zhao Chonglin and team leader Nie Ping about getting a homestead to build a house. Land in the mountains wasn't expensive. Once a spot was chosen, a written agreement would suffice, and at most a few dozen yuan in fees. Xiaolian, carry firewood. Xiaoqi, fetch water. Nie Cang washed the new iron pot and said loudly with a smile, "Today we'll make braised pork to celebrate." "Yay, we're having braised pork." Nie Ro chewed on a milk candy and cheered. Today, when going to the commune to sell goods, Nie Cang deliberately kept over 10 jin of meat for the family to enjoy. Before leaving, he locked the door securely. But when he returned, he found signs that the lock had been tampered with. Nie Cang suspected it was someone from Huang Shifan's room, because although the east room was allocated to him, the key to the lock might not be the only one. Nie Cang had anticipated this and deliberately inserted a grass stem into the lock cylinder before leaving. When he returned, he found the door had indeed been touched. But Nie Cang didn't make a fuss. First, the door wasn't opened and nothing was missing. Second, there was no evidence. If he confronted Huang Shifan, she might turn the tables on him. Today he bought a new lock, and tomorrow he'd reinforce the doors and windows. That should solve the problem. The new iron pot was heated red, and Nie Cang greased it with lard. Instantly, the aroma of burnt fat filled the room. "Brother, we're running low on firewood." Nie Lien brought some dry wood and mentioned to Nie Cang. "Yeah, tomorrow we'll go to the back mountain to get more." Now that he was in charge, he had to worry about everything. This wasn't difficult for Nie Cang, since before, Nie Rahai and Huang Shifan always ordered him to do such things. These tasks were nothing. After seasoning the pot, Nie Cang cleaned it, added lard again, and started stir-frying the meat. The mushrooms and dried potatoes had been soaked in advance. Nie Cang even found time to knead some dough to make pancakes. The fragrant braised pork was stewed until tender. Paired with the aromatic mushrooms and dried potatoes, it was simply delicious. All right, it's ready to eat. Nie Cang lifted the lid and let everyone dig in. Smoke curled up, and the aroma of meat wafted. In the main room adjacent to the east room, it was a different scene. Huang Shifan swung the feather duster so hard that the feathers were almost gone. Li Urjing, red-eyed, covered his butt and grimaced, too scared to make a sound. Hearing the cheers from the east room, Huang Shifan's anger surged again. Beasts! What's there to show off with a bit of money? I'd like to see what those bastards eat and drink after you spend all your hard-earned savings. Today, Huang Shifan saw Nie Cang bring back so many things from town. She had no idea the money came from selling wild boar meat. She thought it was the betrothal gift Dong Yozhan had returned. After beating the child, Huang Shifan was still not satisfied and scolded Nie Rohai, who was lying on the calm. Useless thing. What did I marry you for? I have to swallow my anger when beaten by your bastard. And what kind of life is this? Look at the east room, eating and drinking lavishly. You'd think they're a 10,000 yuan household. Huang Shifan yelled. I'm telling you, Nie Rohai, if you don't deal with those damn bastards today, don't even think about coming to my bed. Nie Rohai heard the commotion from the east room and felt embarrassed. He thought that after driving Nie Cang and the others out, his wife would calm down for a few days, but instead life got even worse. Mom smell that. Nie Lian and the others are stewing meat again. Wah, I want meat too. Li Urjing had a slow mind but a keen nose. Just after being beaten, he smelled the meat. The craving in his bones was stirred up again. The braised pork with spices and side dishes was like a hook, tantalizing everyone. Li Urjing was literally crying from the smell. Outrageous. Nie Rohai's face darkened. Hearing Li Urjing's cries, he jumped off the calm. I'll go talk to them. After all, even if we've split the family, the blood ties can't be broken. They're eating and drinking well in their room, while their old father sits here with his wife and kids, watching helplessly. Nie Rohai put on his clothes, opened the door, and headed to the east room. Knock, knock, knock. The sound of knocking broke the noise inside the room. Nie Cang poured a glass of white liquor and was eating peanuts and braised pork with Nie Lian and Nie Qi, joking around. Nie Lian tried to show off by drinking a sip of Nie Cang's strong sweet potato liquor and was choked, his face red and neck thick. This made Nie Qi and Nie Ro next to him laugh heartily. Hearing the knock, Nie Cang frowned, got up, and moved the door bar away. Outside the door, Nie Rohai stood at the entrance. Seeing Nie Cang open the door, he had a stomach full of words. But for a moment, he didn't know how to start. What are you doing here? Nie Cang said coldly. Nie Rohai was just worrying about how to start, and Nie Cang's words undoubtedly gave him an opportunity. What? Just because we split the family, you're not my son anymore. Nie Rohai put on a fatherly air and looked into the house. The meat, liquor, and peanuts on the stove were particularly eye-catching. Nie Lian, Nie Qi, and Nie Ro all pretended not to see Nie Rohai. Nie Lian even had a cold face, as if he wanted to rush up and punch Nie Rohai twice. Nie Cang was speechless at Nie Rohai's reaction. This old man was so decisive when splitting the family, and now that he saw their life improving, what trick was he trying to pull? Those 2 kicks a few days ago were obviously too light. The separation document clearly states that we have no relationship anymore. Nie Cang tried to say calmly. What document? Can blood relations be cut off just like that? I just think you're young and ignorant. How could I not recognize you as my son? Nie Rohai said with great righteousness. Nie Cang sneered inwardly. This old man is really shameless. If you have something to say it directly. Don't waste my time. I'm about to close the door. Nie Cang made a move to close the door. Nie Rohai was a bit anxious and stuck a foot on the threshold. What are you doing? No matter what, we're still family. Nie Rohai pushed his luck. Not that I'm saying you. But even if the Dong family at the west end of the village returned the betrothal gift, you shouldn't be eating and drinking so lavishly. You're an adult, but you have no sense. What will you use to marry a wife after spending all the money? Nie Cang didn't respond, not because he agreed with Nie Rohai, but simply to see what nonsense this old man could come up with. Nie Rohai thought Nie Cang had taken his words to heart, and immediately put on a fatherly air, starting to lecture. Eating and drinking like this, aren't you afraid the villagers will laugh? Think about it. How much money did you spend on all these things? I should have made you give me the money to keep for you. Oh, give my money to you. Nie Cang sneered. What? You think your father would steal your things? Nie Rohai said without blushing. Today your younger brother, Gong, saw that you bought so much stuff and started making a fuss when he got back. You're an adult. Why bother with a child? You bought so much. What's the harm in letting your brother have some? It made your Aunt Huang argue with me. Later. Forget later. Now pack up some of the things you bought and bring them to my room. Don't forget the braised meat. There are only a few of you, and you cooked such a big pot. Eating only meat will give you diarrhea. Nie Rahai ordered Nie Lian and Nie Chi to get him things. But the room was quiet, and no one moved. Are you done? Nie Cang said with a gloomy face and a cold voice. Seeing Nie Cang's expression was off, Nie Rahai felt he had gone too far and quickly tried to smooth things over. I know you have a conflict with Aunt Huang, but as your father, I'm stuck in the middle. You need to understand. Before Nie Rahai could finish, he suddenly felt a gust of cold wind coming at him. Bang! Nie Cang kicked Nie Rahai hard in the stomach, sending him flying. I understand you. Nie Cang cursed but stopped halfway, unable to find a suitable insult. Old man, I'm telling you, we have no relationship anymore. If you come to our place looking for trouble again, it won't be just a kick. With that, Nie Cang slammed the door, leaving Nie Rahai to struggle in the yard on his own. For such a shameless old man, Nie Cang couldn't even find the right words to describe him. Saying it so nicely, family. When he heartlessly drove them out and abused the children, he didn't think of them as family. When he closed the door and ate inside, leaving Nie Cang with his younger siblings. Hungry and cold outside the door, he didn't think of them as family. Now he knows to say they're family? Too late. No matter how sweet the words, a cold heart can't be warmed. Nie Cang wasn't afraid of Nie Rahai making a scene. Who in Huayin village didn't know what he had done. If it really blew up, the commune wouldn't even need to step in. Just the gossip in the village would be enough to break Nie Rahai and Huang Shifan's backs. Nie Rahai, after being kicked by Nie Cang, lay on the ground for a long time before getting up. Little beast. A son hitting his father. Aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning? I really have bad luck to have given birth to such an ungrateful thing. After cursing for a while, seeing no reaction from the east room's door, Nie Rahai finally limped back to the main room with a grimace. The next morning, after breakfast, Nie Cang took Nie Lian to the back mountain to chop firewood. These days, cooking by themselves, the firewood they hadn't prepared before was being consumed quickly. In the direction of the main room, Li Ergung, with dark circles under his eyes, stared longingly at the biscuits in Nie Lian's hand. Yesterday, after Nie Rahai came back, he rarely argued with Huang Shifan. Li Ergung, standing nearby, hesitated, and ultimately didn't dare ask why he hadn't brought anything back. The aroma of braised pork, biscuits, cans, and other things, Li Ergung dreamed of them, so much that he couldn't sleep at night. Nie Cang ignored Li Ergung's gaze. In fact, as long as they didn't cause trouble, Nie Cang didn't bother dealing with this family. Once spring came and he saved enough money, Nie Cang planned to build another courtyard in the village, and then they would have even less contact. Carrying tools like a machete and hemp rope, Nie Cang led Nie Lian, pushing a cart, toward the back mountain. There were quite a few things at home now, and Nie Cang was worried that if everyone left, the thief from before would come again. So until the doors and windows were reinforced, the east room must never be left unattended. Nie Ro was too young, so Nie Chi had to stay behind to guard the house. It had just snowed heavily on the back mountain, making the uphill path very difficult. Fortunately, it wasn't far, and they arrived before long. Nie Lian collected dry branches everywhere, while Nie Cang looked for suitable low trees and used the machete to cut thick, dead branches into appropriate lengths. In the northeastern mountain village, the firewood for cooking needed to be easy to ignite, and durable stumps were usually kept for heating the Kong. The two worked for less than 2 hours and gathered a large pile of branches and firewood. After bundling and dragging them to the cart, they loaded the firewood, piling it high. Nie Cang pulled in front, and Nie Lian pushed from behind. The two brothers followed the path, trudging through the snow toward home. When they were still some distance from Dong Youzhan's house at the west end of the village, as Nie Cang took a break, the gate of Dong Youzhan's house suddenly opened. It was Dong Xiujuan, wearing a long floral jacket, her hair neatly combed, walking out like a proud rose. Seeing Nie Cang resting not far away, Dong Xiujuan frowned, her disgust obvious. "What are you doing here?" Dong Xiujuan asked arrogantly. At the shout, Nie Cang finally noticed the girl in front of him. Wasn't this his ex-fiancée who had broken off the engagement? "What does it have to do with you where I am?" Nie Cang retorted indifferently. Hearing this, Dong Xiujuan's disgust became even more apparent. "We've already broken off the engagement. I've talked with Brother de Shuang, and we'll return the betrothal gift. Is it interesting for you to hang around our doorstep like this?" Dong Xiujuan pressed with a cold face. "Hanging around your house?" Nie Cang was confused. I'm just stopping here to catch my breath. Who the hell is hanging around your house? This self-righteous woman. Indeed, just like before. You know in your heart whether it's true or not. Dong Qiujuan sneered. You went up the mountain to chop wood, and you stop early or late, but you just happened to stop near my house. And you still dare to say you're not hanging around. Dong Qiujuan worried that Nie Cang's obsession was not dead and that he would still cling to her. The fact that he had been so straightforward about breaking off the engagement before was probably because she had fled the wedding, which hurt his pride, and he wanted to get even. Now that he had come around, he probably still couldn't forget her and wanted to find a chance to rekindle their relationship. Thinking of this, a hint of smugness couldn't help but flash across Dong Qiujuan's cold face. With her looks and figure, being pestered by someone she didn't like was the norm. Although Nie Cang was good-looking, his family was too poor. How could she possibly follow him and live a hard life? Brother Das Wang was her true soulmate. Not only was his family wealthy, but he was also an educated man of culture, and he was very considerate to her. Dong Qiujuan was afraid that Nie Cang might do something extreme that would affect her reputation. After all, the commotion caused by her fleeing the wedding had already spread quite a bit of gossip in the village. If it affected her relationship with Brother Das Wang, it would really be a loss. Thinking of this, Dong Qiujuan forced her originally cold expression to soften. Nie Cang, it's impossible between us. Dong Qiujuan pretended to be regretful. I know fleeing the wedding was wrong of me, but I can't be wrong to myself either. I know you might not understand what I'm saying, but everyone has the right to pursue happiness. We're not right for each other. Dong Qiujuan became more and more agitated as she spoke, and her eyes gradually reddened, making her look particularly pitiful. If it had been before, Nie Cang would have been extremely distressed and would have chased after her to comfort his goddess. But now Nie Cang was no longer the simp he used to be. Dong Qiujuan's performance only made people laugh. Idiot. Nie Cang's evaluation was as sharp and clean as a hunting knife. Dong Qiujuan didn't hear clearly at first and was still waiting for Nie Cang to come and comfort her. When she came to her senses, Nie Cang had already pulled the cart far away. Dong Qiujuan was so angry that she stomped her feet on the spot, and her opinion of Nie Cang plummeted. Country bumpkin. A toad lusting after a swan's meat? You scum. Look at yourself. You want me to marry you? Wait for the next life. After cursing with a twisted face for a long time, Dong Qiujuan finally put away her angry expression and changed her demeanor as she headed toward the neighboring village. Nie Cang didn't have time to care about Dong Qiujuan's messy affairs. As long as Dong Yozhan could return the betrothal gift money he owed as agreed, Nie Cang didn't care at all who Dong Qiujuan married. The matter of building the house was still unresolved, and Nie Cang had to busy himself with hunting to support the family. The money left from selling the wild boar meat, plus the betrothal gift returned by Dong Yozhan, would probably amount to about 400 yuan. Nie Cang had asked his second uncle, and to build a decent big house in Huayin village, including buying furniture, would cost at least 2,000 yuan. Recently, expenses had been relatively high, mainly because he had suddenly become rich and went on a revenge spending spree. Now that the household items were mostly set up, the things he brought back from the mountains in the future should sell for a good amount to save. Nie Cang planned to go up the mountain again today. When Nie Yin and Nie Qi, the two brothers, heard the news, they were as excited as if they had been injected with chicken blood. Don't rush, we still need to repair our hunting tools. The doors and windows of the house also need to be reinforced. We'll set off after lunch. Nie Yin and Nie Qi were full of anticipation. Although they were eagerly looking forward to going up the mountain, they still had to help their brother finish the work first. Nie Cang nailed the doors and windows from the inside with sturdy wooden strips, nailing them up and down all over. Unless someone used a heavy wood chopping axe to hack at them with full force, there was absolutely no way to open them. Naturally, the locks also had to be replaced with new ones. After tidying up the east room from inside to out, Nie Cang began to prepare to repair the hunting tools. While chopping firewood in the morning, Nie Cang had deliberately kept an eye out and found a particularly suitable piece of yew wood. This type of wood is hard and is the best material for making a longbow. Nie Cang lit a pile of firewood outside the yard and first boiled the entire piece of yew wood in the house. Then he fixed its shape with ropes, avoiding the fixed positions, and roasted the wood to set the shape. When the temperature dropped, the yew wood was bent into the appropriate shape. Nie Cang wrapped the handle with soft rabbit fur. For the recurved bow body, he reinforced it with wood strips that were roasted to fit perfectly, which would maximize the strength. The best material for making the bowstring would definitely be beef tendon or deer tendon, but Nie Cang didn't have either on hand.